Then Adaeze spoke again, her voice even softer. "Like the night Obina died," she said quietly. Eze froze slightly. The room became still. Adaeze did not look at him immediately. She let the silence sit between them. Then slowly, she turned her face towards him. She said, "I still wonder how something like that could happen." Eze let out a slow breath. "You think too much about the past," he said. Adaize's eyes softened. "I cannot help it," she replied. She paused. "Were you afraid?" she asked suddenly. Eze frowned slightly. "Afraid of what?" he asked. "That people might blame you," she said gently. Eze stared at her for a moment. Then he gave a small laugh. "Blame me?" he said. "For what?" Adaize shrugged lightly. "You are powerful. People expect many things." Eze leaned forward slightly. "No one would blame me without proof," he said. Adaize nodded slowly. "That is true," she said. She looked away again, as if the conversation meant nothing. But inside, she was watching every word. Eze relaxed again, his guard lowering little by little. She knows nothing, he thought. In the quiet village of Aguma, life moved slowly and peacefully. The red earth roads were always warm under the sun, and tall palm trees stood proudly around small mud houses with thatched roofs. In the evenings, the air became cool, and soft voices filled the village as people returned from the farms. Children played freely, women cooked outside, and elders sat together sharing stories from long ago. It was a simple life, but it was full of peace. In this village lived a young woman named Adaize. She was known by everyone for her calm nature and gentle smile. She did not talk too much, but when she spoke, her voice was soft and kind. Many people admired her, not just for her beauty, but for her good character. She respected elders, helped others, and never caused trouble. But there was one thing that made Adaize's face shine brighter than anything else: her love for Obina. Obina was a hard-working young man in Aguma. He was strong, honest, and always ready to help anyone in need. He was not rich, but he had a good heart, and that was enough for Adaize. People trusted him, and the elders often praised him for his good behavior. Whenever he walked through the village, people greeted him with respect. Every evening, just before the sun went down, Adaize and Obina would meet near a quiet path close to the edge of the village. It was their special place, away from noise and busy life. The sky would turn orange and purple, and the wind would blow softly through the trees. That was where they felt most at peace. On one of those evenings, Adaize arrived first. She stood under a tree, gently holding her wrapper, her eyes looking down the path. As soon as she saw Obina coming, her face lit up with joy. She tried to hide her smile, but it was too strong. "Obina," she said softly as he got closer. "Adaize," he replied with a warm smile. They stood close to each other, their eyes full of happiness. For a moment, they said nothing. They did not need many words. Being together was enough. Obina reached out and held her hand gently. "How was your day?" he asked. "It was fine," Adaize said, "but it is better now." Obina laughed softly. "You always say that." "Because it is true," she replied, smiling. They sat together under the tree and began to talk about their future. They spoke about building a small house, farming together, and raising children. Adaize talked about how she wanted a peaceful home, while Obina promised to work hard to give her everything she needed. "I may not have much now, but I will work every day. I will build something good for us." Adaize shook her head gently. You already have what I need. Your heart is enough. Obina looked at her, deeply touched by her words. Then I will protect that heart with my life. Their laughter filled the quiet path as the sun slowly disappeared. It was a kind of love that felt real and strong, not forced or rushed. Anyone who saw them together could feel it. Back in the village, people had already started talking about them as if they were already married. They are perfect for each other, one woman said while pounding yam. Another replied, I have never seen love like that. Even the elders smiled when their names were mentioned. That young man is responsible, an elder said, and the girl is well trained. Their home will be peaceful. Adaize's parents were also happy. They trusted Obina and believed he would take good care of their daughter. Obina had already started making small plans to visit her family properly and begin the marriage process. Everything seemed perfect. Everything seemed peaceful. But not everyone was happy. Somewhere not too far from where Adaize and Obina met every evening, a man stood quietly watching them from a distance. His name was Eze. Eze was not like the other young men in the village. He was wealthy and powerful. He had many workers, large farmland, and influence among the elders. People respected him, but many also feared him. He was used to getting what he wanted, and no one dared to challenge him. For some time now, Eze had been watching Adaize. At first, it was just admiration. He noticed her beauty, the way she carried herself, and the respect she showed to others. But soon, that admiration turned into something stronger. He began to want her, not just to admire her, but to have her. When he found out that she loved Obina, something inside him became restless. On this evening, as he stood behind the trees, watching Adiaze and Obina laugh together, his face became hard. He saw the way Obina held her hand. He saw the way she looked at him with love, and it made his chest burn with anger. How can a poor man like him have someone like her? Eze muttered quietly to himself. He watched them for a long time, saying nothing more. His eyes followed every movement, every smile, every touch. The more he watched, the more his desire grew. I will have her, he said under his breath, no matter what. Back under the tree, Adiaze rested her head gently on Obina's shoulder. She felt safe, happy, and complete. She had no idea that someone was watching them with dark thoughts. Obina looked down at her and smiled. One day, we will not have to meet like this again. You will be in my house. Adiaze smiled softly. I am already yours. As the night grew darker, they slowly stood up to return to their homes. They walked together for a short distance before parting ways, each one turning back again and again to look at the other, not wanting the moment to end. From the shadows, Eze watched until they were gone. The night in Aguma remained quiet and calm, just like every other night. But hidden inside that calmness was something dangerous, something growing slowly, waiting for the right time. And while Adiaze and Obina held on to their love, believing nothing could break it, Eze stood alone in the darkness, already planning how to take it away. In the quiet village of Aguma, life continued as usual, but something had already begun to change behind the peaceful surface. The sun still rose early, farmers still went to their land, and women still gathered to cook and talk. But inside one man's heart, there was no peace. Eze could not forget what he had seen. Every evening, the image of Adaize and Obina together stayed in his mind. The way she smiled, the way she looked at Obina with love, it troubled him deeply. He was not used to being denied anything. In his life, if he wanted something, he simply took it. But this time, things were different. Adaize did not even look at him. One morning, as Eze sat in the open space in front of his large compound, he called one of his servants. Go to the market, he said calmly. Buy the best wrappers, jewelry, and food items. Make sure everything is of high quality. The servant nodded quickly. Yes, my master. And listen, Eze added, his voice firm. Take them to Adaize's family. Tell them it is from me." The servant bowed his head and left immediately. Eze leaned back in his chair, confident. "Let us see if she will refuse this," he said quietly to himself. Later that day, the servant arrived at Adaize's family house with many gifts. There were beautiful wrappers, shining beads, bags of rice, and bottles of palm wine. The items were so many that people nearby began to gather and whisper. "Who sent all these things?" one woman asked. "It must be someone important," another replied. Adaize's parents came outside surprised by what they saw. "These gifts are from Eze," the servant announced proudly. "He sends his greetings and says he wishes to speak with your family." Adaize's parents exchanged looks. They knew Eze was wealthy and powerful. This kind of attention was not small. "Bring them inside," Adaize's mother said, trying to hide her excitement. When Adaize returned home later that day and saw the gifts, her heart became heavy. She did not need to ask who sent them. She already knew. Her mother smiled at her. "Do you see how God is blessing you?" she said. "A man like Eze does not look at a woman without reason." Adaize remained quiet for a moment before speaking. "Mother," she said softly, "I do not want these things." Her father frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I already have someone," Adaize replied calmly. "My heart belongs to Obina." Her mother's smile faded. "Obina," she said, "that poor boy?" "He is not just a poor boy," Adaize said gently. "He is a good man." Her father sighed. "Eze can give you a better life," he said. "You will not suffer." "I am not suffering. I am happy." Her parents looked at each other, unsure of what to say. They knew Adaize was not stubborn, but she was strong in her decisions. The next day, Adaize made up her mind. She asked to see Eze. When she arrived at his compound, everything around showed wealth and power. The buildings were large, the compound was clean, and workers moved around quickly, doing their duties. Eze sat comfortably, waiting for her. When he saw Adaize, a small smile appeared on his face. "Adaize," he said, "you came." Adaize stood respectfully, keeping a small distance. "I came to speak with you," she said. Eze nodded. "Sit down," he said, pointing to a chair. Adaize sat, but her posture remained careful. "I received your gifts," she began. "I came to thank you." Eze smiled wider. "That is good," he said. "It is only the beginning. I can give you more." Adaize shook her head gently. "No," she said gently. "I respect you. You are a great man in this village, but I cannot accept your offer." Eze leaned forward slightly. "Why?" he asked. Adaize took a small breath. "Because I love someone else." For a moment, there was silence. Eze's eyes became serious. "Obina?" he said quietly. "Yes," Adaize replied. Eze let out a slow breath and leaned back again. "Are you choosing him over me?" he asked. Adaize nodded gently. "It is not about choosing wealth or comfort. It is about my heart." Eze looked at her carefully, studying her face. He expected fear or hesitation, but he saw none. She was calm and sure of her words. "I can give you everything," Eze said. "You will never lack anything." Adaize replied softly. "I already have what I need." Eze's jaw tightened slightly. "And what is that?" "Peace," she said, "and love." Those words hit him deeply. For the first time, Eze felt something he was not used to. Rejection. He forced a small smile. "You will change your mind," he said. Adaize shook her head gently. "No," she said gently. She stood up slowly and added, "Thank you for your kindness, but please do not send gifts again." Without waiting for another response, she turned and walked away. Eze watched her leave, his face now completely different. The calm, confident man was gone. In his place was someone wounded and angry. His hands tightened into fists. "How dare she?" he said under his breath. One of his servants, who stood nearby, noticed his expression, but said nothing. Eze stood up suddenly and began to walk around. "She chose him," he said, his voice low but filled with anger. "She chose that poor boy over me." His pride was deeply hurt. In his life, no woman had ever spoken to him like that. No one had ever turned him down so calmly. At first, he tried to control his anger, but as the day went on, his thoughts became darker. Each time he remembered Adiaze's words, his anger grew stronger. Each time he pictured her with Obinna, laughing and smiling, his chest burned. "This is not over," he said quietly. What started as desire was now changing into something else, something stronger, something dangerous. Eze returned to his seat, but this time there was no peace in his eyes. "I will not be rejected," he said firmly. Back in her home, Adiaze sat quietly, thinking about what had happened. She felt relieved that she had spoken the truth. She believed everything would return to normal. Later that evening, she went to meet Obinna again at their usual place. When she saw him, her heart became light again. "Obinna," she said with a smile. "Obinna," he replied happily. They sat together as always, talking and laughing, sharing simple moments. "I spoke to him today," Adiaze said. Obinna looked at her. "Eze?" She nodded. "I told him the truth." Obinna sighed. "I hope he listens." Adiaze smiled softly. "It is finished," she said. "There is nothing to worry about." But far away in his large compound, Eze sat alone in the darkness, his mind far from finished. His pride had been broken, and slowly, quietly, his desire for Adiaze was turning into anger and something even more dangerous. The village of Aguma woke up to another calm morning. The sun rose slowly, spreading soft light across the red earth and the quiet houses. Women swept their compounds, children ran about laughing, and men prepared to go to their farms. Everything looked normal, peaceful, and full of life. But inside Eze's compound, there was no peace. Eze had not slept well. He lay awake most of the night, thinking about Adaize's words. Her calm voice, her refusal, and the way she said she loved Obinna kept playing again and again in his mind. Each time he remembered it, his chest tightened with anger. He stood up early and walked outside, his face serious and cold. The servants greeted him, but he did not respond. His mind was already made up about one thing. This matter would not end the way Adaize wanted. Later that morning, Eze called two of his most trusted men to come and see him. These were men who had followed him for years, men who did not question his orders. They arrived quickly and stood before him with respect. "You called us," one of them said. Eze nodded slowly. "Sit," he said. They sat quietly, waiting for him to speak. For a moment, Eze said nothing. He looked away, as if thinking carefully about his words. Then he finally spoke. "There is a woman I want," he said. The men looked at each other briefly, then back at him. "That is not a problem," one of them replied. "Just say the word." Eze shook his head slightly. "It is not that simple." The men became more serious. "She has refused me," Eze continued. There was a silence for a moment. It was not something they expected to hear. "Refused?" the second man asked, surprised. "Yes," Eze said, his voice tight. "She says she loves another man." The two men exchanged looks again. "Who is the man?" one of them asked. "Obinna," Eze said quietly. The name hung in the air. The first man nodded slowly. "We know him. A simple man. A simple farmer." Eze's eyes became harder. "Yes, a simple man, but he stands in my way." There was a short silence again, but this time it felt heavier. "What do you want us to do?" the second man asked carefully. Eze stood up and began to walk slowly in front of them. "I have given her gifts. I have shown her what I can offer. Still, she chooses him." His voice grew colder. "She will not choose him if he is not there." The meaning of his words was clear. The men looked at him, understanding what he was saying without him needing to say it fully. "You want him removed," one of them said quietly. Eze stopped walking and turned to face them. "I want this problem to end." The second man leaned forward slightly. "It can be done," he said. Eze nodded slowly. "No mistakes," he added. "No one must connect it to me." The men both nodded. "We understand," they said. Eze returned to his seat, his face now calm but cold. He said, "Watch him. Know his movements. Choose the right time." "It will be handled," one of the men replied. As they stood up to leave, Eze added one more thing. "After this, she will have no choice." The men nodded again and left quietly. Eze remained alone, staring into the distance. What had started as desire had now fully turned into something dark. In his mind, he was not doing anything wrong. He believed he was simply removing an obstacle to get what he wanted. Back in another part of the village, life was very different. Adaze and Obina were filled with happiness. That evening, as usual, they met at their special place near the quiet path. The sky was beautiful, painted with soft colors as the sun slowly went down. The wind moved gently through the trees and everything felt calm. Adaze arrived with a bright smile and Obina was already waiting for her. "You came early today," she said, laughing softly. "I could not wait," Obina replied with a smile. They sat down together, their hands gently touching. "I have been thinking," Obina said. Adaze looked at him. "About what?" "About us," he replied. "About our future." Adaze's smile grew softer. "Me too," she said. Obina took a deep breath. "He thinks it is time," he said. Adaze looked at him with curiosity. "Time for what?" "To begin our marriage plans," he said. For a moment, Adaze said nothing. Then her face slowly lit up with joy. "Are you serious?" she asked softly. Obina nodded. "Yes," he said. "I have spoken to my family. They are ready. I want to come and see your parents properly." Adaze felt her heart fill with happiness. "I have been waiting for this," she said. Obina smiled. "Then let us choose a date," he said. They began to talk excitedly, discussing when Obina's family would visit, what they would bring, and how everything would be done. Their voices were full of hope and joy. "Next week," Obina suggested. "It is a good time." Adaze nodded quickly. "Yes, next week is perfect." They both laughed, feeling closer than ever. "This is the beginning," Obina said. "Soon you will be in my house." Adaze smiled warmly. "I cannot wait," she replied. They sat together for a long time, talking about their future. They spoke about the kind of home they wanted, the children they hoped to have, and the peaceful life they dreamed of building together. To them, everything felt certain and bright. But not far away, hidden behind the same trees that once gave them comfort, two men watched quietly. They had been sent by Eze. They stood in silence, observing every movement, every laugh, every moment Adaze and Obina shared. "That is him," one of the men said quietly. The other nodded. "Yes." They watched as Obina held Adaze's hand as they talked and laughed without fear. "They look happy," the second man said. The first man's face remained serious. "It will not last," he replied. They stayed there until Adaze and Obina stood up to leave. As always, the couple walked slowly together, not wanting the moment to end. They stopped, smiled at each other, and then finally went their separate ways. From the shadows, the two men continued to watch until Obina was alone. Then they turned and walked away quietly. "We have seen enough," one of them said. "Yes," the other replied. Back at Eze's compound, the night had fallen. The air was quiet and the moon shone faintly in the sky. Eze sat alone once again. One of the men returned and stood before him. "We have found him," he said. Eze looked up slowly. "Good," he replied. "He has a routine," the man continued. "We will choose the right time." Eze nodded, his face calm but dangerous. "Do it," he said simply. The man bowed his head. "It will be done." As he left, Eze leaned back in his seat, his eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Back in their separate homes, Adaze and Obina slept peacefully, their hearts full of hope for the future they had just begun to plan. They did not know that while they were dreaming of marriage and happiness, a decision had already been made. A dark decision, and it was slowly moving towards them. The sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, painting the sky with orange and purple colors. Women called their children inside. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and tired farmers returned home with slow steps. The village looked peaceful. But for Adeaze, that evening would become the night that destroyed everything. She stood outside her family house, adjusting her wrapper carefully. Her heart was full of excitement because she was going to see Obinna again. Ever since they fixed the date to begin their marriage plans, she could not stop smiling whenever she thought about him. Her mother looked at her and smiled knowingly. "You are going to meet him again," she said. Adeaze tried to hide her smile. "I will not stay long," she replied softly. Her mother laughed lightly. "Go," she said, "but remember there is still a home waiting for you here." Adeaze smiled and left the compound. As she walked through the quiet paths of Aguma, her heart felt light. The evening breeze touched her skin softly, and she kept remembering the way Obinna smiled the previous day. "Next week," he had said happily. Adeaze smiled again as she remembered it. "Yes," she whispered to herself, "next week." She walked faster, eager to see him. When she finally reached their usual meeting place near the lonely path at the edge of the village, she stopped under the familiar tree and looked around. But Obinna was not there. Adeaze frowned slightly. "That is strange," she murmured. "Obinna was never late." She stood quietly, looking down the path, expecting him to appear at any moment with his usual smile. Minutes passed slowly. The sky grew darker. Still no Obinna. A small worry began to enter her chest. "Maybe something delayed him," she said quietly. Then suddenly, she heard something from deeper inside the path. Voices. At first, the voices were low and unclear. Then came the sound of movement, heavy footsteps. Adeaze froze. "What is that?" she whispered. Her heart began to beat faster. Then she heard another sound, a struggle. Fear immediately entered her body. Without thinking, Adeaze quickly stepped behind a thick tree and hid herself. Her breathing became fast as she tried not to make any sound. The noises grew louder. Then she heard a voice she knew very well. "Obinna, leave me," he shouted. Adeaze's eyes widened in fear. She slowly peeped from behind the tree, and what she saw almost stopped her heart. Two men were attacking Obinna. They held him roughly, pushing and hitting him as he struggled to escape. Obinna fought back with all his strength, but the men were stronger and prepared. "Please," Obinna shouted angrily as he struggled. Adeaze covered her mouth quickly to stop herself from screaming. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "No," she whispered silently. Her body shook badly. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to help him. But fear held her frozen behind the tree. Then another voice entered the darkness. A voice she recognized immediately. "Hold him properly." Adeaze's entire body became cold. She knew that voice. Slowly, carefully, she looked further into the darkness, and then she saw him. Eze. He stood a short distance away, watching everything calmly. Adeaze's heart broke instantly. "It is him," she whispered in disbelief. Her legs became weak. Tears rolled down her face as she stared at the man she had once rejected politely. The same man who claimed to care for her was standing there while Obinna was being attacked. "No," she whispered again. Obinna struggled harder. "Why are you doing this?" he shouted. One of the men punched him hard. Eze stepped closer slowly, his face cold and emotionless. "You should have stayed away," he said quietly. Obinna looked up at him in shock. "So it is because of Ada Eze?" Obinna asked angrily. Ize's eyes hardened immediately. "Finish it," he said. Those words pierced Adaize like a knife. Her entire body trembled. The attack became more violent. Obina tried to fight back, but he was getting weaker. Adaize pressed herself against the tree, tears pouring endlessly down her face. "Please stop," she whispered helplessly, but nobody heard her. The men continued. Obina fell heavily to the ground. Still, they did not stop. Ize stood there watching calmly, watching without mercy. Adaize could barely breathe. She wanted to scream Obina's name. She wanted to run to him, but fear completely trapped her. One wrong movement and they might see her too. Then, suddenly, everything became quiet. Obina stopped moving. The silence that followed was terrifying. Adaize stared at the ground where he lay. Her heart shattered completely. "No," she whispered weakly. The men stepped back slowly, breathing heavily. One of them looked at Ize nervously. "Oga, he is not moving." Ize stared down at Obina's body for a moment. Then he spoke calmly. "Let us go." Adaize's eyes widened again. Just like that. No regret, no pity, nothing. The men began to leave. Adaize quickly hid herself properly again, her body shaking violently. As Eze passed near the tree where she hid, Adaize stopped breathing completely. She feared he would hear her heartbeat. For a terrifying moment, Eze paused. Adaize's eyes filled with fear. But then he continued walking. Soon, the voices disappeared into the darkness. Everything became silent again. Adaize remained hidden for several moments, too afraid to move. Then finally, slowly, she stepped out. Her legs shook badly as she moved toward Obina. "Obina," she whispered. No response. She fell beside him immediately. "Obina!" she cried softly, touching him desperately. His body was still, cold. Adaize shook him gently. "Please wake up," she begged. Tears poured heavily from her eyes. "Please, please." But Obina did not move. The reality slowly entered her heart. He was gone. The man she loved, the man she planned to marry, the man she dreamt about every day, gone forever. Adaize cried bitterly, but she forced herself not to scream loudly. Fear still surrounded her. Her body trembled uncontrollably as she held Obina tightly. "I am sorry," she whispered through tears. "I am sorry I could not help you." She lowered her head onto his chest and cried quietly. The night breeze blew softly through the trees, but nothing felt peaceful anymore. Everything had changed. After some time, Adaize slowly stood up. Her body felt weak, almost unable to carry her. She looked at Obina one last time, tears flowing endlessly. Then she began to walk backwards slowly, unable to take her eyes off him. Finally, she turned and ran. She ran through the dark paths of Aguma, crying silently as fear and pain swallowed her whole. When she reached home, she entered quietly and rushed inside before anyone could see her properly. Her mother noticed her. "Adaize," she called, but Adaize could not answer. She quickly entered her room and shut the door. Then she fell to the ground. Her crying finally escaped loudly. She held herself tightly, shaking from pain and fear. Images of the night replayed in her mind again and again. Obina struggling. Eze standing there. "Finish it." Adaize covered her ears, but the voices would not stop. That night, she did not sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Obina lying on the ground. Each time she breathed, she felt her heart breaking again. And somewhere in the darkness of Aguma, Eze slept peacefully, while Adaize's world had completely fallen apart. The morning after that terrible night, the village of Aguma did not feel the same. The air was heavy and even the usual sounds of birds and children seemed quieter. News had spread quickly. Obinna was dead. People gathered in small groups, whispering and shaking their heads in shock. "Such a good young man," one elder said sadly. "This is very painful," another replied. "Who would do such a thing?" Some said it must be robbers. "Yes, maybe thieves attacked him on the road," a woman suggested. "Or enemies from outside the village," another added. Everyone had something to say, but none of them knew the truth. None of them knew what Adaize had seen. Adaize sat quietly inside her family house, her eyes swollen from crying. Her body felt weak, like all her strength had left her. She had not slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing, Obinna struggling, falling, and then not moving again. She pressed her hands together tightly, trying to control her shaking. Her mother sat beside her, gently rubbing her back. "My daughter," she said softly, "be strong." Adaize did not respond. Her father stood nearby, his face serious and filled with sadness. "This is a terrible loss. That boy did not deserve this." Adaize's lips trembled slightly. "He did not deserve it," she whispered. Tears rolled down her face again. Her heart felt like it was breaking again and again every time she remembered. Later that day, the village gathered for Obinna's burial. People came from different parts of Aguma, all dressed in sorrow. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with pain and silence. Adaize walked slowly, supported by her mother. Her steps were weak and her eyes looked empty. When she saw Obinna's body lying there, she froze. For a moment, everything around her disappeared. All she could see was him, her Obinna, the man who had promised her a future, the man she had planned to marry, now lying still, cold and silent. A quiet cry escaped her lips. She wanted to run to him, to wake him up, to tell him to stand up, but she knew it was not possible. She covered her face and cried softly, her shoulders shaking. The people around her also wept. "Such a painful death," someone said. "His life was just beginning," another added. But to Adaize, their words felt far away. She stood there, drowning in her own pain, and deep inside her, one truth kept repeating itself. Eze did this. After the burial, the village slowly returned to their homes, but the sadness remained. Adaize became very quiet. She stopped going out, she stopped laughing, she stopped talking. Sometimes she would sit alone for hours, staring into space, her mind filled with memories. She remembered Obinna's smile. She remembered his voice. She remembered the way he said, "Next week." Her chest tightened painfully. "There will be no next week," she whispered one evening. Her mother watched her with worry. "You must try to eat," she said gently. Adaize shook her head. "I am not hungry." "You cannot continue like this," her father added. But Adaize said nothing. She felt empty. Days passed slowly. The village continued to talk about Obinna's death. "It was bad luck," some people said. "Yes, very bad luck," others agreed. "No one really knows what really happened," someone added. Adaize listened to these words, her heart filled with frustration. "I know what happened," she whispered to herself, but she could not speak. She remembered that night clearly. She remembered Eze's voice. She remembered his face in the darkness. She knew the truth, but who would believe her? One afternoon, as Adaize sat quietly outside, someone entered their compound. It was Eze. He walked in slowly, his face calm, his expression carefully controlled. Adaize's body became stiff immediately. Her heart began to beat faster. Her mother stood up quickly. "Eze," she said surprised, "you came." Eze nodded respectfully. I came to check on her, he said, looking at Adieze. Adieze could not look at him. She kept her eyes on the ground, her hands shaking slightly. I heard about what happened, Eze continued. It is very painful. Adieze felt anger rise inside her, but she forced herself to remain still. You must be strong, Eze said softly, stepping closer. Adieze's fingers tightened. This was the same man, the same voice, the same person who had stood there and watched Obina die. Yet now, he stood here pretending to care. I am here for you, Eze said. Adieze finally looked up at him. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, everything was silent. Eze's face looked calm, even kind, but Adieze saw something else. She saw the truth. Her eyes filled with quiet pain. Thank you, she said softly. Her voice was low, controlled. Eze nodded slightly. If you need anything, do not hesitate to tell me, he said. Adieze said nothing more. She looked away again. Eze stayed for a short while, speaking with her parents, offering help, showing concern. To everyone else, he looked like a kind and caring man. But Adieze knew better. After he left, Adieze sat quietly again. Her mother sighed. He is a good man. See how he cares. Adieze's heart tightened. A good man, she repeated slowly. She turned her face away so no one would see the tears forming again. That night, Adieze lay awake, staring into the darkness. Her mind was no longer just filled with pain. Something else had started to grow. A deep understanding. She thought about what would happen if she spoke. If she stood in front of the village and said, Eze killed Obina, would they believe her? Or would they look at her as a grieving woman speaking out of pain? Eze was powerful. He was respected. He had influence. She was just a young woman. Slowly, the truth settled in her heart. No one will believe me, she whispered. Her tears rolled down her face again. Her voice was gone. Her pain was hidden. And the man who caused it all was walking freely, respected by everyone. Adieze closed her eyes tightly. I saw everything, she whispered into the night. But her words had no place to go. In the quiet darkness of Aguma, Adieze carried her pain alone. Tears fell, but her voice remained silent. Days passed slowly in the village of Aguma, but for Adieze, time felt heavy and painful. The sun still rose every morning, and people continued with their daily lives, but nothing felt the same to her. Everywhere she looked, she saw memories of Obina. The path they used to walk, the tree where they used to sit, the soft evening breeze they once shared, it all reminded her of what she had lost. Adieze had stopped going out completely. She stayed inside most of the time, sitting quietly, thinking, remembering, and trying to hold herself together. Her laughter was gone. Her voice was soft and rare. Even when people spoke to her, she only answered with a few words. But inside her, something was changing. Her pain was no longer just tears. It was slowly becoming something deeper. One afternoon, Adieze sat alone behind her house, staring at the ground. Her hands were placed on her lap, but her fingers kept tightening slowly. I saw him, she whispered to herself. Her mind returned to that night again. Eze's voice, his face in the darkness, the way he stood and gave orders. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time she did not cry loudly. She only breathed slowly, trying to control herself. He took everything from me, she said quietly. For a long time, she had thought about speaking out. She had imagined standing in front of the villagers and telling them the truth. But each time she thought about it, the same answer came back to her. No one would believe her. Eze was too powerful, too respected, too untouchable. She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, "that will not work." She remained silent for a long time, her thoughts moving slowly but clearly. Then suddenly, something changed in her expression. Her eyes became steady, her breathing slowed. "If I cannot fight him from outside, then I will go inside." The words came out slowly, but they carried weight. A dangerous idea had just entered her mind. Instead of running away from Eze, she would move closer to him. Very close, close enough to see everything, close enough to destroy him. Adaeze stood up slowly, her decision now forming clearly in her heart. "I will not run, I will not hide." Her voice was still soft, but there was something new in it, something strong. That evening, her parents sat together inside the house when Adaeze walked in quietly. They looked up at her. "Adaeze," her mother said gently, "come and sit." Adaeze walked closer and sat down calmly. There was a short silence. Then she spoke. "I have been thinking," she said softly. Her parents looked at her carefully. "About what?" her father asked. Adaeze took a small breath. "About my future," she said. Her mother leaned forward slightly. "That is good," she said. "You must move forward." Adaeze nodded slowly. "I do not want to remain like this forever," she continued. Her parents exchanged hopeful looks. "That is true," her father said. "Life must go on." Adaeze looked down briefly, then back up again. "I am ready," she said. "Ready for what?" her mother asked. Adaeze's voice remained calm. "I will accept Eze," she said. And the room became silent immediately. Her parents stared at her, shocked. "Eze?" her mother repeated. "Yes," Adaeze replied quietly. Her father sat up straight. "Are you serious?" he asked. Adaeze nodded. "I have thought about it carefully," she said. Her mother's face slowly changed from surprise to joy. "My daughter," she said softly, "this is a good decision." Her father also nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "a very good decision." They both looked relieved. To them, this meant Adaeze was finally moving on. To them, this meant she had accepted a better future. To them, this meant peace. But they did not know what was inside her heart. Adaeze forced a small smile. "I want to move forward," she said. Her mother reached for her hand. "You have chosen wisely," she said. Her father added, "Eze will take good care of you." Adaeze nodded gently, but her eyes did not show joy. Inside her, something else was growing. Not love, not peace, but a quiet, burning purpose. The next day, word was sent to Eze. When he heard the message, he was silent for a moment. "She agreed?" he asked. "Yes," the messenger replied. Eze stood still, as if making sure he heard correctly. Then slowly, a smile appeared on his face. "Good," he said quietly. "Very good." His chest filled with satisfaction. The woman who had rejected him had now accepted him. In his mind, he had won. Later that day, Eze decided to visit Adaeze's family again. This time, his steps were confident. When he arrived, he was welcomed warmly. "Adaeze has told us everything," her father said with a smile. Eze nodded calmly. "I am glad," he replied. Adaeze came out slowly. She stood in front of him, her face calm. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, silence filled the space between them. Eze smiled. "I am happy you have changed your mind," he said. Adaeze lowered her eyes slightly. "I have thought about it," she said softly. Eze nodded. "You made the right choice," he said. Adaeze said nothing. Inside her, her heart whispered something else. "This is not your victory," she thought. "It is the beginning of your end." But her face remained calm. "I am ready," she said quietly. Eze looked pleased. "Then we will begin preparations," he said. Her parents smiled happily. Everything moved quickly after that. Plans began. Discussions started. The village slowly heard the news. Adeze is going to marry Eze, people said. Ah, that is good, some replied. She has chosen well, others added. No one knew the truth. No one knew what was really happening. Adeze moved through everything quietly. She did not laugh, she did not show excitement, but she did not refuse anything. She allowed everything to continue. That night, as she lay on her bed, she stared into the darkness again. But this time, her thoughts were different. She was no longer thinking about what she had lost. She was thinking about what she would do. I will get close to him, she whispered. I will learn everything. Her eyes slowly hardened. And when the time comes, she paused. Her breathing became steady. I will not miss. Outside, the night in Aguma was quiet and calm, but inside Adeze, something powerful had begun. She had made her choice, a dangerous choice, and there was no turning back. The village of Aguma had not seen such a celebration in a long time. From early morning, the whole place was full of life. Women were busy cooking, men arranged seats and decorations, and children ran around happily, excited by the noise and movement. Drums sounded in the air, and laughter could be heard from every corner. It was the day of Adaize's wedding to Eze. Bright wrappers were everywhere. Colorful beads shone under the sun. Visitors came from nearby villages, all dressed in their best clothes. Everyone wanted to witness the marriage of a powerful man and a beautiful woman. This will be a big wedding, people said. Yes, Eze does not do small things, others replied. In her father's house, Adaize sat quietly while women surrounded her, helping her get ready. They dressed her in fine clothes, tied beautiful beads around her neck and wrists, and carefully arranged her hair. Her face looked calm, almost too calm. You look so beautiful, one woman said. Eze is very lucky, another added. Adaize forced a small smile. Thank you, she said softly. Inside, her heart was not celebrating. As they prepared her, her mind slowly drifted away from the noise around her. She remembered another day, another dream. A simple wedding, a quiet one, with Obina. She closed her eyes briefly. That life is gone, she whispered inside her heart. Her chest felt tight, but she controlled herself. She had already made her choice. She would not break now. Outside, Eze stood proudly among his people. He wore fine clothes, his head held high. There was joy on his face and confidence in his steps. He greeted elders, laughed with his friends, and accepted praises from everyone around him. Congratulations, people said. You have chosen well, others added. Eze smiled. Yes, he replied, I have. In his mind, everything had gone exactly the way he wanted. The woman he desired had now become his. The past did not matter to him. All he saw was victory. When the time came, Adaize was brought out. A soft murmur passed through the crowd as people saw her. She's beautiful, someone whispered. Yes, very beautiful, another replied. Adaize walked slowly, her steps steady, her face calm. Her eyes looked forward, not searching, not hoping, just focused. Eze watched her approach, a proud smile on his face. As she stood beside him, the ceremony began. Voices rose, prayers were said, and traditions were followed. Families spoke, elders gave blessings, and the union was accepted by all. To everyone watching, it was a perfect moment. But inside Adaize, there was no joy. When it was time for her to speak, she did so softly, her voice steady. I accept, she said. The words were simple, but they carried a meaning no one else could hear. Eze smiled widely. The people cheered. Music grew louder. Dancing began. Food was shared. Laughter filled the air. The celebration continued for hours. People ate, drank, and enjoyed themselves. Women danced in groups, men clapped and sang, and children played around happily. Eze stayed close to Adaize, proud and satisfied. He looked at her often, pleased to have her by his side. "You belong here now," he said quietly to her. Adaeze nodded gently. "Yes," she replied. But inside her, her thoughts said something else. "I am here for a reason." As the celebration went on, many people came to greet her. "You are now a great woman," one elder said. "You are blessed," another added. Adaeze listened quietly, nodding politely. Her face remained calm, her smile soft. No one saw what was hidden inside her. As evening approached, it was time for Adaeze to leave her family house and follow Eze to his compound. Her mother held her tightly, tears in her eyes. "Be strong," she said. "I will," Adaeze replied softly. Her father placed his hand on her head. "You have made us proud," he said. Adaeze nodded gently. Without another word, she turned and began to walk. The sound of drums followed her. Voices sang behind her, but her heart felt heavy. Step by step, she walked away from the life she once knew. Step by step, she moved toward the man who had destroyed it. When they arrived at Eze's compound, everything was ready. The place was decorated, clean, and full of people waiting to welcome her. "Welcome," they said. "Welcome our new wife." Adaeze stepped inside slowly. She looked around the large compound, taking in everything. This would now be her home. This place of wealth, this place of power, this place of lies. Eze stood beside her, smiling. "This is your home now," he said. Adaeze looked at him briefly. "Yes," she replied. But deep inside her, her thoughts were clear. This is where it will end. Later that night, after the noise had faded and the visitors had gone, Adaeze sat alone in the room that had been prepared for her. The room was beautiful. Fine cloth covered the bed and soft light filled the space. Everything showed comfort and wealth, but Adaeze felt nothing. She sat quietly, her hands resting on her lap. The silence around her felt heavy. Slowly, her mind returned to Obinna. His voice, his smile, the way he looked at her. Tears filled her eyes again. "You said next week," she whispered. Her voice broke slightly. "There was supposed to be a future." She closed her eyes tightly, holding back her tears. "I did not forget," she whispered. Her voice became steady again. "I will never forget." She lifted her head slowly, her face now calm but firm. "I am here now, and I will finish this." Outside, the night in Aguma was quiet again. But inside Eze's house, a new chapter had begun. A marriage filled with celebration on the outside, but built on pain, silence, and a promise that had not yet been fulfilled. Life in Eze's compound began to settle after the wedding. The noise of celebration faded, and everything returned to a quiet routine. Workers moved in and out of the compound, carrying out their duties. Meals were prepared on time. Visitors came and went. From the outside, everything looked peaceful and well-ordered. At the center of it all was Adaeze. From the very first morning, she stepped into her role without hesitation. She woke up early before most people in the compound. She greeted the workers politely, spoke gently, and carried herself with calm respect. She did not act like a stranger in the house. Instead, she behaved as if she had always belonged there. "Good morning," she would say softly to the women in the kitchen. "Good morning, madam," they would reply with smiles. She learned quickly. She observed how things were done and followed carefully. She did not argue, she did not complain, she simply adjusted. To everyone watching, she was the perfect wife. Eze noticed it too. Each day as he watched her move around the compound, he felt more pleased. She was quiet, respectful, and obedient. She did not question him or challenge him. Instead, she listened, nodded, and followed his lead. "You have settled well," Eze said to her one morning. Adaeze bowed her head slightly. "I am trying," she replied. Eze smiled. "You are doing more than trying. You are doing well." Adaeze gave a small smile. "Thank you," she said. But inside her, she was not trying to please him. She was watching him carefully. Every movement, every word, every habit. She paid attention to the way he spoke, the way he reacted to people, and the way he handled situations. She noticed what made him happy, what made him angry, and what made him relax. She said very little, but she saw everything. In the evenings, when Eze returned from his activities, Adaeze would be there waiting. She would welcome him calmly, offer him water, and sit quietly as he spoke. "How was your day?" she would ask. Eze would sit down and begin to talk. At first, his words were simple. He would say, "The farm is doing well," or "I met with some elders today." Adaeze would listen, nodding gently. "That is good," she would reply. Slowly, day by day, Eze began to speak more. He talked about his plans, his work, and the people around him. He shared his successes and his challenges. He shared things he had never shared with others. Adaeze listened to everything. She did not interrupt. She did not complain. She simply listened. And in that silence, Eze found comfort. "She understands me," he began to think. He started to look forward to speaking with her. He felt relaxed around her, free to talk without holding anything back. One evening, as they sat together, Eze sighed deeply. "Some people cannot be trusted," he said. Adaeze looked at him gently. "Why do you say that?" she asked. Eze shook his head. "There are many people who pretend, but I can see through them." Adaeze nodded slowly. "You are a strong man. You know how to handle such people." Eze looked at her and smiled. "You speak wisely," he said. Adaeze lowered her eyes slightly. "I only speak what I see." Inside her, her thoughts were moving differently. "Speak," she thought. "Tell me more." And slowly, Eze did. As the days passed, he began to trust her more deeply. He started asking for her opinion on small matters. "What do you think?" he would say. Adaeze would respond carefully. "I think you should take your time," she might say. Or, "You should be patient." Her words were always calm, always reasonable. Eze began to depend on her. "You understand things well," he told her one day. Adaeze smiled softly. "I am only learning from you," she said. But the truth was different. She was not learning from him, she was studying him. At night, when Eze slept, Adaeze remained awake sometimes, staring into the darkness. Her face would become still, her eyes focused. She would think about everything she had seen and heard that day. "Adaeze trusts me now," she whispered quietly. Her mind would go back to that night again. The voices, the struggle, Eze's words, "Finish it." Her fingers would tighten slightly. "I am getting closer," she said softly. During the day, she continued to play her role perfectly. She laughed when needed, she spoke gently, she moved carefully. Even the workers in the compound began to admire her. "She's a good woman," one of them said. "Yes," another agreed. "She's calm and respectful." Eze heard these things and it made him proud. "She is my wife," he would say. And each time he said it, he believed it more deeply. One afternoon, Eze returned earlier than usual. He found Adaeze sitting quietly sorting some items. "You are always busy," he said. Adaeze looked up and smiled slightly. "There's always something to do," she replied. Eze sat beside her. "You have brought peace to this house," he said. Adaeze paused for a moment, then nodded gently. "I am glad," she said. Eze looked at her closely. "You are different," he said. Adaeze tilted her head slightly. "Different how?" she asked. Eze thought for a moment. "You do not complain, you do not question, you just understand." Adaeze held his gaze for a brief moment. "I listen," she said. Eze smiled. "And that is why I trust you," he replied. Those words stayed in the air. Adaze lowered her eyes slowly. Inside her, her thoughts were clear. Yes, she thought, trust me, because that was exactly what she needed. That night, as she lay beside him, she stared at the ceiling quietly. Eze slept peacefully, his breathing calm. Adaze turned her head slightly and looked at him. For a moment, her face showed nothing. No love, no anger, just calm. Then slowly, her eyes hardened. "You do not know," she whispered softly. "You have no idea." She turned her face away again, closing her eyes. Outside, the night remained quiet. Inside the house, everything looked peaceful. But behind Adaze's calm voice and gentle actions, a plan was growing, slowly, carefully, and Eze was falling deeper into it without even knowing. The nights in Eze's compound were always quiet. After the workers finished their duties and the lamps were dimmed, a deep silence covered the whole place. The only sounds were soft insects in the dark and the slow movement of the night breeze. Inside the large room, Adaeze lay beside Eze. He slept easily. She did not. Her eyes stayed open, staring into the darkness above her. Her body was still, but her mind was awake and alert. Every night, she watched him sleep, listening to his breathing, studying even his silence. "He trusts me," she whispered softly in her heart. That trust was what she needed. That trust was the key. Adaeze slowly turned her head and looked at him. His face was relaxed, calm, without worry. There was no sign of fear, no sign of guilt. But she knew what he had done. Her chest tightened slightly. "I will not forget," she thought. She closed her eyes gently, but she did not sleep. Instead, she began to plan again, carefully, slowly, patiently. The next night, she made her first move. After their evening meal, they sat together as usual. A small lamp burned beside them, giving a soft light in the room. Eze stretched his body and leaned back comfortably. "You are very quiet tonight," he said. Adaeze looked at him calmly. "I am thinking," she replied. "About what?" he asked. Adaeze paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "About life," she said softly. "About how things can change suddenly." Eze nodded slowly. "That is true," he said. Adaeze looked down briefly, then back at him. "Sometimes," she continued, "people do things and others suffer for it." Eze's face remained calm, but his eyes shifted slightly. "That happens," he said. Adaeze watched him closely, but her face showed nothing. "Like what happened to Obinna," she said quietly. The name hung in the air. For a brief moment, the room felt heavier. Eze looked at her. "I thought you had moved on," he said. Adaeze lowered her eyes. "I am trying," she replied softly, "but sometimes I still think about it." Eze said nothing for a moment. "It was unfortunate," he finally said. Adaeze nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "very unfortunate." She paused again. "Do you think it was really robbers?" she asked gently. Eze shifted slightly. "That is what people say." Adaeze leaned back a little, her voice calm. "But it did not feel like that," she said. Eze looked at her again. "What do you mean?" he asked. Adaeze kept her tone soft. "I mean, it felt planned," she said. "Like someone wanted it to happen." Eze's eyes narrowed slightly. "You think too much," he said. Adaeze gave a small, almost shy smile. "Maybe," she said. She did not push further that night. She stood up slowly. "I am tired," she said. Eze nodded. "Go and rest," he replied. That night, as they lay down, Adaeze felt something shift. She had touched the edge, and she knew he felt it. The next few days, she said nothing about it again. She returned to her calm, gentle self. She laughed when needed. She listened as always. She behaved like the perfect wife. And slowly, Eze relaxed again. He began to feel safe once more. She has let it go, he thought. But Adaize had not. She was only waiting. Another night came. The room was quiet again. This time, Adaize spoke first. "You work with many men," she said softly. Eze nodded. "Yes," he replied. "They are loyal?" she asked. Some are not." Adaize looked thoughtful. "How do you know who to trust?" she asked. Eze leaned back slightly. "You watch them. You test them." Adaize nodded slowly. "And when you find the ones you trust," she asked, "you keep them close," Eze replied. Adaize's eyes looked at him carefully. "And they do anything for you?" she asked. Eze smiled faintly. "If they are truly loyal, yes." Adaize's heart beat slightly faster, but her face remained calm. "That must be useful," she said softly. Eze nodded. "It is," he replied. There was a short silence. Then Adaize spoke again, her voice even softer. "Like the night Obina died," she said quietly. Eze froze slightly. The room became still. Adaize did not look at him immediately. She let the silence sit between them. Then slowly, she turned her face towards him. She said, "I still wonder how something like that could happen." Eze let out a slow breath. "You think too much about the past," he said. Adaize's eyes softened. "I cannot help it," she replied. She paused. "Were you afraid?" she asked suddenly. Eze frowned slightly. "Afraid of what?" he asked. "That people might blame you," she said gently. Eze stared at her for a moment. Then he gave a small laugh. "Blame me?" he said. "For what?" Adaize shrugged lightly. "You are powerful. People expect many things." Eze leaned forward slightly. "No one would blame me without proof," he said. Adaize nodded slowly. "That is true," she said. She looked away again, as if the conversation meant nothing. But inside, she was watching every word. Eze relaxed again, his guard lowering little by little. She knows nothing, he thought. Days passed again. Then one night, Eze spoke more freely than before. "It is not always easy," he said suddenly. Adaize looked at him. "What is not easy?" she asked. "Getting what you want," he replied. Adaize tilted her head slightly. "You always get what you want," she said. Eze smiled faintly. "Not always easily," he said. Adaize's eyes stayed on him. "Tell me," she said softly. Eze hesitated for a moment. Then he spoke. "Sometimes," he said, "you have to remove what stands in your way." Adaize's chest tightened, but her face did not change. "And if that thing is a person?" she asked quietly. Eze looked at her. Then he leaned back again. "That is life," he said. Adaize's fingers pressed lightly against her wrapper. "And you have done that before?" she asked. Eze did not answer immediately. Then slowly he said, "I have people who handle things." Adaize's heart pounded. "People?" she asked. Eze nodded. "Men who are loyal," he said. Adaize's voice dropped slightly. "The same men who were there that night?" she asked. Eze looked at her quickly. There was a pause. Then he said quietly, "You ask many questions." Adaize lowered her eyes. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I did not mean to upset you." Eze watched her for a moment. Then he relaxed again. "It is nothing," he said. But the silence that followed was different. Adeze had heard enough. Not everything, but enough. That night, as Eze slept beside her, Adeze lay awake again. Her eyes were open, her mind clear. "They did it," she whispered. "You sent them." Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall. Instead, her expression slowly became firm. "I am getting closer," she said quietly. The pain in her heart remained, but now it was mixed with something else. Something stronger, something sharper. Each truth she uncovered hurt her deeply, but each truth also brought her closer to the moment she had been waiting for. In the darkness of the night, Adeze closed her eyes slowly, and for the first time in many days, she did not feel lost. She felt focused, very focused. Life in Eze's compound changed in a quiet but clear way. The more time passed, the more Eze's attention stayed on Adaze. He no longer moved around with the same distance he once had. Instead, he stayed close to her, watched her, and spoke to her often. His voice became softer when he spoke to her. His eyes followed her movements like she was the most important thing in his world. Every morning, before leaving the house, he would look for her. "Adaze," he would call. She would come out calmly. "Yes?" Eze would say, "I am going out." Adaze would nod. "Have a good day." Eze would pause for a moment, as if waiting for something more. "Will you be here when I return?" he asked one morning. Adaze looked at him gently. "Where else would I be?" she replied. Eze smiled, satisfied. "Good," he said, then left. It was a small moment, but it showed something important. He was beginning to depend on her. As the days passed, this feeling grew stronger. Whenever he returned from his work, the first thing he did was look for her. He no longer cared as much about other matters until he had spoken to her. "How was your day?" he would ask. "It was fine," Adaze would reply. Then he would begin to talk, not just about simple things anymore, but about deeper matters, his plans, his concerns, even his fears. "I do not trust some people," he said one evening. Adaze sat quietly beside him. "Then do not depend on them," she said softly. Eze nodded slowly. "That is why I depend on you," he said. Adaze's face remained calm. "You can trust me," she replied gently. Inside her, her thoughts were different. "Yes," she thought, "trust me completely." Eze leaned back, his body relaxing. "You understand me better than anyone," he said. Adaze gave a small nod. "I listen," she replied. But her listening was not for comfort. It was for knowledge. It was for control. Each word Eze spoke gave her more understanding of him. Each moment he opened up made him more vulnerable, and Adaze used that silently, carefully. One afternoon, Eze returned earlier than usual. He looked tired, his face slightly tense. Adaze noticed immediately. "You do not look well," she said softly. Eze sighed and sat down heavily. "It has been a long day," he said. Adaze stood up and brought him water. "Drink," she said. He took it and drank slowly. Adaze sat beside him quietly. "What is troubling you?" she asked. Eze looked at her. "For some time now, I feel like I am carrying too much," he said. Adaze nodded slowly. "You do not have to carry everything alone," she said. Eze looked at her more closely. "That is why I have you," he said. Adaze lowered her eyes slightly. "I am here," she replied. Eze reached for her hand and held it. "You bring me peace," he said. Adaze allowed him to hold her hand, but inside, her chest felt tight. Peace? She felt no peace, only control, only purpose. Eze smiled softly as he looked at her. "I am glad you are my wife," he said. Adaeze gave a small smile. I am here, she repeated. As time went on, Eze began to include Adaeze in more of his decisions. What do you think about this? He would ask. Adaeze would respond carefully. Take your time, she might say, or think about the outcome. Her answers were always calm, always thoughtful. Eze trusted her judgment. You see things clearly, he told her. Adaeze nodded gently. I try, she said. But she was not trying, she was guiding. Slowly, quietly, she began to influence his choices. When he was angry, she calmed him. When he was unsure, she gave him direction. When he was confused, she helped him decide. And with each moment, his trust in her grew deeper. You are the only one I can rely on, he said one evening. Adaeze looked at him. I will not fail you, she said. Inside, her thoughts were sharp. I will not fail myself. At night, when the compound became quiet, Eze would sometimes stay awake talking to her. I did not think I would feel this way, he said one night. Adaeze looked at him calmly. Feel what way? She asked. Eze hesitated for a moment. Attached, he said. Adaeze said nothing. Eze continued. At first, I only wanted you, he said, but now it is more than that. Adaeze's heart remained still. I depend on you, he added. Adaeze nodded gently. That is what marriage is, she said softly. Eze smiled. Yes, he said, but this feels deeper. He looked at her with soft eyes. I cannot imagine this house without you. Adaeze met his gaze briefly. You will not have to, she replied. Eze leaned closer slightly. You have changed me, he said. Adaeze's face remained calm. Inside, her thoughts moved coldly. No, she thought. You changed yourself. Eze rested his back again, relaxed. You make me better, he said. Adaeze said nothing. She only watched him quietly. The man who once stood in the darkness, giving orders for another man's death, was now sitting beside her, speaking softly, trusting her completely. It was almost strange, almost unbelievable. But Adaeze did not forget, not for a moment. Each time he smiled at her, she remembered Obina's smile. Each time he spoke gently, she remembered the voice that said, finish it. Each time he held her hand, she remembered the man who once held her hand with true love. Her chest burned quietly, but she controlled it perfectly. Eze looked at her again. You are quiet, he said. Adaeze gave a small smile. I am listening, she replied. Eze nodded. And I will keep talking, he said. Adaeze lowered her eyes. Yes, she said softly. Keep talking. Because every word brought her closer. Every moment of trust made him weaker. And every day that passed, the man who killed for her love was falling deeper and deeper in love with her. While inside her, there was no love at all. Only a calm, controlled anger, waiting for the right moment. The days in Eze's compound continued to look peaceful, but Adaeze knew that the peace was only on the outside. Every morning, she woke up with the same calm face. She greeted the workers, arranged the house, and welcomed Eze with a soft voice. Anyone who looked at her would think she was a gentle wife who had accepted her new life. But inside her heart, Adaeze was still standing on that dark path where Obina died. She had not forgotten one sound. She had not forgotten one face. She had not forgotten Eze's voice. Each day, Eze trusted her more. Each day, he leaned on her more. He spoke to her about his plans, his worries, and the people he feared. Adaeze listened to everything. She had already learnt much about him, but she knew it was not enough. She needed to see his fear clearly. She needed to know how deep his guilt was. So she began to test him. She did not do it loudly. She did not accuse him. She only used small words, small memories, and quiet questions. She knew Eze was a proud man. If she pushed too hard, he would become careful. So she moved slowly, like someone walking near a sleeping snake. One evening, Eze returned home in a good mood. He had eaten well, drank palm wine, and laughed with some elders earlier that day. He sat outside under the moonlight, while Adaeze sat beside him, calm and quiet. The night breeze moved gently around them. Eze looked at her and smiled. "You are quiet tonight," he said. Adaeze looked at the moon. "The moon reminds me of many things." Eze leaned back. "What things?" Adaeze waited for a moment before answering. "Obina liked the moon," she said softly. Eze's face changed immediately, but only for a short moment. His smile disappeared, then returned quickly. "Why are you thinking about him?" he asked. Adaeze turned slowly to look at him. "I did not say I was thinking about him. I only said the moon reminded me of him." Eze looked away. "That man is dead," he said. Adaeze nodded slowly. "Yes, he is dead." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were watching him. Eze picked up his cup and drank. His hand was not as steady as before. Adaeze noticed. She said nothing more. That night, when they went inside, Eze was quieter than usual. He did not speak much before sleeping. Adaeze lay beside him, her eyes open in the darkness. "So, the name still touches you," she thought. The next morning, Eze behaved normally again. He called workers, gave orders, and moved around the compound with pride. But Adaeze had seen the small crack. She knew the wall around him was not as strong as he wanted people to believe. A few days later, she tested him again. This time, it happened during breakfast. A servant placed food before them and left quietly. Eze began to eat, but Adaeze only looked at her food. "Are you not eating?" Eze asked. "I will," she replied. He looked at her. "What is wrong?" Adaeze gave a small sigh. "I had a dream last night," she said. Eze stopped chewing. "What dream?" he asked. Adaeze kept her eyes on her plate. "I saw Obina." The silence that followed was sharp. Eze slowly dropped the food in his hand. Adaeze continued in a soft voice. "He was standing on a dark road. He did not speak. He only looked at me." Eze's eyes became hard. "Dreams mean nothing," he said quickly. Adaeze looked up at him. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. "The dead do not come back." Adaeze held his gaze. "But sometimes the dead want justice," she said quietly. Eze pushed his plate away. "I said dreams mean nothing," he snapped. The servant outside heard his raised voice and became still. Adaeze lowered her eyes immediately. "I am sorry. I did not mean to upset you." Eze breathed heavily, then stood up. "I am going out," he said. He walked away without finishing his food. Adaeze remained seated. Her face was calm, but inside she felt the truth becoming clearer. Eze was afraid. Not just angry, afraid. Later that day, Eze returned with a forced smile. He acted as if nothing had happened. He even brought Adaeze a new wrapper from the market. "This is for you," he said. Adaeze accepted it gently. "Thank you," she replied. Eze sat beside her. "You know I care about you." Adaeze nodded. "I know. You should not fill your mind with sad things. The past is gone." Adaeze looked at the wrapper in her hands. Some things do not go, she said softly. Some things stay. Eze stared at her. Adaeze lifted her eyes and smiled gently, as if she had said nothing serious. It is a beautiful wrapper, she said. Eze forced a small laugh. Yes, it will look good on you. But his eyes still showed worry. From that day, Adaeze noticed that Eze began to watch her more. Not the way he watched her before, with love and pride. This time, there was something else in his eyes. Suspicion, fear, confusion. He loved her, but he was also beginning to fear what she knew, and that pleased Adaeze. Not because she enjoyed fear, but because fear meant weakness, and weakness could break him. Meanwhile, in the village, people were also beginning to notice small things. At the market, women whispered when Adaeze passed. One woman said, "She looks too calm." Another woman nodded. Yes, after all that happened, she married Eze so quickly. Maybe she truly moved on, another said. But an older woman shook her head. No, she said, that girl carries something inside her. Adaeze heard some of the whispers, but she did not react. She walked through the market with her head held low, buying what she needed and greeting people politely. But the whispers followed her. Some people thought she was strange. Some people thought she had become too quiet. Some people thought her marriage to Eze was not normal. One afternoon, Adaeze met an old woman named Nelma near the stream. Nelma had known Adaeze since she was a child. She was one of those elders who did not talk too much, but when she spoke, people listened. Adaeze was filling her pot with water when Nelma came close. "My daughter," the old woman said. Adaeze looked up. "Mama Nelma." Nelma studied her face carefully. "You have become very quiet." Adaeze gave a small smile. "Life has made me quiet." Nelma nodded slowly. "That is true," she said, "but silence can hide many things." Adaeze looked away. Nelma stepped closer. "Do you have peace in that man's house?" Adaze's hand tightened slightly around the pot. "I am fine," she said. The old woman looked at her for a long time. "You did not answer my question," Nelma said. Adaeze remained silent. Nelma lowered her voice. "Some pains do not die because we cover them with fine clothes." Adaeze swallowed hard. For a moment, she almost spoke. She almost said, "I saw him." She almost said, "Eze killed Obina." But she stopped herself. Not yet. Not to anyone. Not until she was ready. So she only lifted the pot gently. "I must go," Adaeze said. Nelma nodded, but her eyes stayed on her. "Be careful, my daughter," she said softly. "A heart that carries fire can burn the owner too." Adaeze walked away without answering, but the old woman's words stayed with her. That evening, when Adaeze returned to Eze's compound, she found him sitting outside with two of his loyal men. They stopped talking when she entered. Adaeze noticed. Eze looked at her quickly. "You came back?" "Yes," Adaeze replied. "Where did you go?" "To the stream." "With who?" Adaeze paused. "Alone." Eze looked at her for a few seconds. "You should not move around too much alone." Adaeze lowered her eyes. "As you wish." The two men looked at each other. Adaeze saw them. She recognized one of them, not fully at first, but something about his face, his body, and the way he stood made her heart jump. She had seen him before, in the darkness, on the night Obina died. Her breathing almost changed, but she controlled it quickly. She bowed her head slightly and walked inside. Once she entered the room, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. "It was him," she whispered. Her heart pounded. One of the men in Eze's compound. One of the men who attacked Obina. She had suspected it before, but now she was almost sure. That night, Adaeze waited. She waited until Eze came inside. He looked troubled. "You saw my men today," he said. Adaeze folded a cloth slowly. "Yes." "They looked at you strangely." Adaeze raised her eyes. "Did I?" Eze stepped closer. "Yes." Adaeze gave a small smile. "Maybe I was only wondering why they stopped talking when I entered." Eze's expression changed. "They were discussing business," he said. Adaeze nodded. "Business." Her voice was gentle, but the word sat heavily in the room. Eze watched her carefully. "What are you trying to say?" Adaeze placed the cloth down and turned to him. "Nothing," she said. "I only asked." Eze stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked away. "You ask too many questions these days." Adaeze walked closer slowly. "Do my questions trouble you?" Eze looked back at her quickly. "No." Adaeze's eyes stayed on his face. "Then why are you angry?" Eze opened his mouth, but no words came out immediately. Adaeze saw it. Another crack. He was not fully in control anymore. Adaeze touched his arm gently. "I am your wife," she said softly. "You said you trust me." Eze's face softened a little. "I do trust you," he said. "Then do not fear me," Adaeze replied. For a moment, Eze looked almost weak. "I do not fear you," Adaeze said. Adaeze's eyes stayed on his face. "Good." She nodded gently. But they both knew the truth. He feared her silence. He feared her questions. He feared what she might know. The next day, tension grew in the village. A young man who had been close to Obinna saw Adaeze near the market and stopped her. "Adaeze," he said. She turned slowly. His name was Chuka. He had once worked with Obinna on the farm. "Chuka," she replied. He looked around before speaking. "I have wanted to ask you something." Adaeze's chest tightened, but her face stayed calm. "What is it?" Chuka lowered his voice. "The night Obinna died, did he tell you he was going anywhere?" Adaeze looked at him quietly. "No," she lied softly. Chuka looked unsure. He was careful. He was not the type to walk into trouble. Adaeze swallowed. "I know." Chuka looked at her closely. "People say it was robbers, but I do not believe it." Adaeze's heart beat faster. "Why?" "Because nothing was taken from him. His money was still with him. His sandals were still there. Even the small cloth he carried was still there." Adaeze felt cold inside. She had not known that. Chuka continued. "That was not robbery." Adaeze looked away. "What do you think happened?" she asked carefully. Chuka's eyes became serious. "I think someone wanted him dead." The words entered Adaeze like a knife. For a moment, she could not speak. Chuka watched her. "You know something," he said quietly. Adaeze turned back quickly. "No." "You do," Chuka said. "I can see it." Adaeze stepped back. "You should not say such things," she whispered. "Why?" he asked. "Are you afraid?" Adaeze's eyes filled with pain for a brief second, then she hid it. "Leave this matter alone," she said. Chuka shook his head. I cannot. He was my friend. Adaeze's voice became firmer. Then stay alive for him. Chuka became silent. Those words told him something. Adaeze realized she had said too much. She quickly turned and walked away. Chuka stood there watching her go. Now he was sure. Adaeze knew something. That evening, as Adaeze returned to Eze's house, she felt the world closing in around her. Eze was beginning to fear her. Some villagers were beginning to suspect her. Chuka was asking questions. Nelma had warned her. The men involved were still close to Eze. Everything was becoming dangerous. But Adaeze did not stop. That night, she tested Eze again. They sat inside the room and the lamp burned low. Adaeze looked at him and said softly, "Do you believe a hidden truth can stay hidden forever?" Eze looked at her sharply. What kind of question is that? Adaeze shrugged gently. Just a question. Eze stood up. I do not like these questions. Adaeze looked calm. Why? Because they sound like accusations. Adaeze stood too. Do you feel accused? Eze stared at her. His eyes were full of anger, but behind the anger was fear. Adaeze saw it clearly. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. I only asked about truth. Eze breathed heavily. Truth is dangerous, he said. Adaeze nodded slowly. Yes, she replied, especially for those who hide from it. Eze's face changed. For a moment, it looked like he might shout, but he did not. Instead, he turned away. Sleep, he said coldly. Adaeze watched him. She had pushed him enough for one night. Later, when Eze finally slept, Adaeze sat near the window and looked out at the dark compound. The moon was high. The same moon that once shone on her and Obinna, the same moon that now watched her inside the house of his killer. Her eyes filled with tears, but her face remained strong. Obinna, they are beginning to shake, she whispered. She wiped her tears slowly. But I must be careful. She knew the cracks were showing now, in Eze, in the village, in the lies around Obinna's death. The truth was no longer buried as deeply as before. It was moving, slowly, quietly, dangerously. And Adaeze knew that very soon, everything hidden in darkness would begin to come out into the open. The morning in Aguma began like any other, but something important was already moving beneath the calm surface. Word had spread across the village that there would be a gathering that evening. Elders, titled men, and respected voices in the land would come together in Eze's compound to discuss matters concerning the village. It was not unusual. Eze was a powerful man, and his compound was often used for such meetings. But this time, something felt different. Adaeze woke up early that morning, just like every other day. She moved quietly around the compound, greeting the workers and arranging small things. To anyone watching, she looked calm and normal. But inside her, there was no calm. Her mind was steady. Her heart was strong. Today would be the day. She had waited long enough. She had watched. She had listened. She had learned everything she needed to know. And now, the time had come. As she walked through the compound, she saw Eze standing outside, speaking with two of his men. One of them was the same man she had recognized, the one she had seen that night. Her chest tightened, but her face showed nothing. Eze turned and saw her. Adaeze, he called. She walked toward him calmly. Yes? Eze turned and said, We have a gathering this evening. Important men will be here. Adaeze nodded. I heard, she replied. Eze used his head to show the house. You should prepare the house, he added. I will, she said softly. Eze looked at her for a moment. You will behave properly. Adaeze tilted her head slightly. I always do. Eze's eyes stayed on her. Good, he said. Adaize turned and walked away. Inside her, her thoughts were clear. Yes, I will behave properly. The day passed slowly. People began to arrive as the sun started going down. Elders walked into the compound with dignity. Important men followed, greeting one another with respect. Mats were spread, drinks were served, and the compound slowly filled with voices. Adaize moved quietly, making sure everything was in place. She greeted the elders respectfully, her voice calm and gentle. "My daughter," one elder said, "you have settled well." Adaize bowed her head. "Yes, sir." Eze watched her from a distance. She looked perfect, calm, respectful, controlled. But something inside him was not at peace. He had been uneasy for days. Her questions, her silence, the way she looked at him sometimes. He did not understand it, but he felt it. Still, he pushed the feeling aside. Tonight was important. The meeting began as darkness covered the sky. The elders sat in a circle, speaking about village matters, land issues, disputes, community concerns. Eze spoke confidently, his voice strong as always. Adaize stayed at the edge, standing quietly, watching. Her heart beat slowly. Not fast, not afraid, just steady. She waited. Time passed. The meeting was almost coming to an end when one of the elders spoke. "Before we close," he said, "is there any other matter to discuss?" There was a short silence. Eze shook his head slightly. "No," he said, "we have covered everything." The elders nodded. But then, a soft voice spoke. "I have something to say." All heads turned. It was Adaize. She stepped forward slowly. The compound became silent. Eze's body became stiff. Eze sharply said, "Adaize, this is not your place to speak." Adaize looked at him calmly. "Today, it is." The elders looked at each other. "What does she want to see?" one of them asked. "Let her speak," another elder said slowly. Eze stood up quickly. "This is not necessary," he said. But Adaize had already stepped into the center. She faced the elders. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm. "I want to speak about Obinna." The name fell heavily into the air. Eze's face changed immediately. "Stop," he said. But Adaize did not stop. "Obinna was a good man," she began. The elders listened. He was kind, he was honest, he worked hard, he had no enemies. Eze's breathing became heavier. "Adaize," he said again, more firmly. But the elders raised their hands. "Let her speak," one of them said. Adaize continued. "We loved each other," she said. "We planned to marry. We fixed a date." Her voice did not shake. But one night, everything ended. The compound was completely silent now. Even the night insects seemed to have stopped. Adaize lifted her eyes. "I was there," she said. Murmurs spread among the elders. "What do you mean?" one asked. Adaize spoke clearly. "I saw what happened that night." Eze took a step forward. "This is madness," he said. Adaize turned her eyes to him. "No," she said quietly. "This is truth." The elders looked between them. "What did you see?" an elder asked. Adaize faced them again. "I went to meet Obinna that night," she said. "I arrived early. I heard voices. I hid." Her hands tightened slightly. "I saw men attack him." The elders leaned forward. "And I saw the man who gave the order." Silence. Heavy silence. Adaize turned slowly. Her eyes rested on Eze. It was him. The words landed like thunder. Voices rose immediately. "What is she saying? Is this true?" Eze stepped forward, his face filled with anger. "This is a lie," he shouted. Adaize did not move. "You stood there," she said. "You said, 'Finish it.' The exact words. Eze froze. For a moment, his anger stopped. The elders looked at him sharply. How would she know those words? One asked. Eze quickly recovered. She is lying, he said. She is trying to destroy me. Adiaze shook her head slowly. I saw you, she said. Eze pointed at her. She is grieving. She has not healed. She is imagining things. Adiaze took a step closer. Then, why were your men there? She asked. Eze's eyes widened slightly. What men? He said. Adiaze turned and pointed. That man, she said. All eyes moved to one of Eze's loyal men. The man shifted nervously. Eze looked at him quickly. Adiaze continued. I saw his face that night. The man shook his head quickly. No, but his voice was weak. Another elder stood up. Speak, he commanded. The man looked at Eze. Eze's face was hard. Say nothing, his eyes seemed to say. Adiaze spoke again. You followed him, she said. You attacked Ubina. You pushed him down. The man began to sweat. I did not, but the elders were watching closely now. Answer clearly, one of the elders shouted. The pressure was growing. Eze stepped forward again. This is nonsense, he said loudly. She has no proof. Adiaze turned to him. You told me yourself, she said. Eze froze. When? He asked. In the night, when you spoke about removing obstacles. The elders looked at him. You said you have men who handle things, Adiaze continued. Eze's face changed. You twist my words, he said. Adiaze shook her head. No, she said. I listened carefully. She stepped closer again. You killed him because I refused you. The words were clear, sharp, impossible to ignore. The compound erupted with noise. Is this true? Eze, answer. Eze's breathing became heavy. His calm was breaking. This is a setup, he shouted. She is lying. But his voice no longer carried the same strength. The elders were no longer looking at him with respect. They were looking with suspicion. Adiaze spoke again, her voice still calm. If I am lying, tell them where you were that night. Eze opened his mouth, but no words came out immediately. The silence that followed was loud. Answer her, an elder said. Eze swallowed. I was at home, he said. Adiaze nodded slowly. Then, why did your men follow Obina? Eze turned to the man again. Speak, he commanded. But the man was shaking now. His voice shook. I did not, but the elders were watching closely now. Answer clearly, one elder shouted. The pressure was growing. Eze stepped forward again. This is nonsense, he said loudly. She has no proof. Adiaze turned to him. Turn to your men, she said. The elders looked at the man. The pressure was on him now. The silence that followed was heavy. The man stood there, trembling, his eyes darting between Eze and the elders. The fear in his face was unmistakable. It was the only proof everyone needed. The night in Aguma did not feel like any other night. The air was heavy, and the compound that once carried pride and power now held silence and shock. The words had already been spoken. The truth had already come out. There was no hiding it again. Eze stood in the middle of the compound, surrounded by elders and villagers. The same men who once respected him now looked at him with anger and disappointment. The same voices that once praised him now whispered against him. I did it for her, he had said. Those words still echoed in the air. Adaize stood a short distance away, her body calm, her face steady. Tears rested in her eyes, but she did not wipe them. She had carried pain for too long. She would not hide anything anymore. One of the elders stepped forward slowly. His voice was strong, but filled with anger. You took a life, he said. A good man. A man with no fault. Eze lowered his head slightly. He had no answer. You used your power to do evil, another elder added. The crowd murmured. This is shameful. This is wickedness. Eze looked around, but there was no support. Even his loyal men stood quietly, their heads down. No one defended him. No one spoke for him. For the first time, Eze felt truly alone. His pride, the thing he held on to so tightly, was breaking. He lifted his head slowly and looked at Adaeze. "I did it because of you," he said again, his voice softer now. "I wanted you." Adaeze looked at him without fear. "You destroyed what I loved." Her voice was calm, but it carried deep pain. "You took a good man from this world." Eze swallowed. "I gave you everything," he said weakly. Adaeze shook her head slowly. "No," she replied. "You took everything." Silence fell again. The elders began to speak among themselves. Their voices were serious, their faces hard. This was not a small matter. This was not something that could be ignored. After a short time, one of them raised his hand. "This man has brought shame to this village." Others nodded. "He does not deserve it." Another elder stepped forward. "From today, his title is removed." A loud murmur spread through the crowd. "That is right. He does not deserve it." Eze's eyes widened. His title, his pride, everything he had built, gone. "And he will face punishment," the elder continued. Eze's legs felt weak. The powerful man who once stood tall now looked small, broken, defeated. Adaeze watched everything quietly. This was not joy. This was not happiness. But it was justice. The truth had come out. The man who thought he was untouchable had fallen. Slowly, people began to leave the compound, shaking their heads, whispering among themselves. The respect that once followed Nze was gone, replaced by shame. Adaeze turned away. She had nothing more to say to him. She had nothing more to take from him. As she walked, Eze's voice called her. "Adaeze." She stopped, but she did not turn back immediately. "You planned this," he said weakly. Adaeze turned slowly. Her face was calm. "Yes," she said. Eze's eyes filled with disbelief. "You pretended all this time?" Adaeze nodded. "I came close to you so I could see the truth clearly," she said. Eze shook his head slowly. "I loved you," he whispered. Adaeze looked at him. "No," she said softly. "You wanted me." Her words cut deep. "You destroyed a life to have me," she continued. "That is not love." Eze said nothing. He had no words left. Adaeze turned away again and continued walking. This time, she did not stop. She walked out of the compound, out of the place that held lies, out of the place that held pain, out of the place that was never truly her home. The night air touched her face as she stepped onto the quiet path. For the first time in a long time, she felt something different. Not happiness, but lightness. She was free. The next morning, the village of Aguma woke up to a new reality. Everyone was talking. "Did you hear what happened?" "Yes, it is true. Eze killed him." "I cannot believe it." "He has been disgraced." People spoke in shock and disbelief. Eze's compound, once full of pride, now stood quiet and empty. Workers moved slowly, unsure of what would happen next. The man they once feared and respected was now nothing. Adaeze returned to her family house. When her parents saw her, they were shocked. "My daughter," her mother said. Adaeze walked in quietly. "It is over," she said. Her father looked at her with confusion. What do you mean? Adeze sat down slowly. I told the truth. Her parents exchanged looks. What truth? Her mother asked. Adeze took a deep breath. Eze killed Obina. The words filled the room. Her mother covered her mouth in shock. Her father stepped back. What? Adeze nodded. I saw it. Tears filled her mother's eyes. My daughter, you carried this alone? Adeze nodded slowly. I had to, she said. Her father sat down heavily. And now? He has been exposed, Adeze replied. Her mother moved closer and held her tightly. You are strong, she said. Adeze closed her eyes for a moment. I did what I had to do, she whispered. Days passed. Life in the village slowly returned to normal, but the story of what happened remained. People spoke about it as a lesson, as a warning, as something they would never forget. Eze was no longer the man he used to be. His power was gone, his respect was gone, his pride was gone. And Adeze was no longer the same woman. She was stronger, wiser, quieter, but not broken. One evening, as the sun went down and the sky became soft and beautiful again, Adeze walked alone to the path she shared with Obina. The same tree stood there. The same breeze moved through the air. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. She stood under the tree and looked up at the moon. For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she spoke. I did it, she whispered. Her voice was soft but steady. The truth is out. A tear rolled down her cheek. I miss you, she said. Her chest felt heavy, but it did not break her. She stood there, breathing slowly. Then she lifted her head. I am free now. The night breeze moved gently around her. She was no longer afraid, no longer hiding, no longer silent. Just a woman who had faced pain and survived it. Lesson. This story teaches that evil may hide for a time, but the truth will always come out. No matter how powerful a person is, they cannot escape the consequences of their actions. It also shows that revenge is not always about violence. Sometimes the greatest revenge is exposing the truth and letting justice take its place. And most importantly, it teaches that even after deep pain, a person can rise again, become stronger, and find freedom. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures where the wonders of imagination knows no bound. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonders, and endless possibilities. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories. See you in the next one.